Welcome to the American Home Contractors Podcast. Today we have joining us Alan York, General Manager of EagleView. Alan, welcome.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to be here, Dave. We don't get to see each other often enough, but every time we do, I always look forward to it.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. Thanks for coming down. So we're going to talk about EagleView. We're going to talk about autonomous drones and solar and all sorts of stuff. So I was thinking maybe we start with some history of EagleView.
Sure. The history of EagleView was started a little bit before 2008. There was a contractor that came up with the idea. He saw Google Earth and decided he wanted to know if he could measure roofs from it. And the unique thing that he had was he actually had somebody that understood enough about computers, how to measure. And so they had a conversation about it. And what they came back with was that from Google Earth in only 2 dimensions, the accuracy that they would be able to produce wouldn't be sufficient. So, as legend has it, and there's lots of stories about this, so you take all of it as there's my story, there's someone else's story, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, but I'll be very close. They built a birdhouse, set it up in their garage, and from that birdhouse they took pictures from a variety of different angles, or the orthogonal, which is straight down, and then obliques from all different sides. And the brother-in-law who had the computer capability, he sewed all those images together and came up with the ability to create a 3-dimensional image that he could then measure with a great degree of accuracy, including all of the pitches, which is what was missing from 2 dimensions of Google Earth. Shortly after that, again, as legend has it, they found a company called Pictometry, which was taking imagery for counties around the United States, but they had a very unique capture process, and that capture process included those oblique images that they weren't being able to get anywhere else. So EagleView, one thing led to another. EagleView signed a contract with Pictometry that was guaranteed to continue in forever as long as they paid, and they quickly became Pictometry's largest customer, buying the imagery, creating these maps, and the first customers were the insurance carriers. They went after the enterprises first, and then the contracting business came later. As a result of it, we were building the maps on why can't we sell these to roofing contractors. So we started a small little group that was roofing contractors. And then, that carried on for a little while. I joined the company in 2015, and at that time, the construction side of the business was probably 1/5 the size of the carrier side of the business in terms of total revenue and the number of reports that were being bought. And now we're almost twice as flipped the other way. We do close to twice as much business as the carriers do on the construction side of the business. So it's been a whirlwind, and it's been a great adventure. It's a great place to work. It's forward thinking, and it's just when you go into the market with the product that you know is the best product in the market, it's always a comfortable feeling. So.
Do you know what inspired the founder of EagleView to get started? I heard a story about driving through LA traffic to go running appointments, and
I don't. Many people in the industry may know him. I think his name is Dave Carlson. He's still pertinent around the industry. You see him at IRE and a few other things. So if you see him, you can ask him what motivated him to come up with him. Because I don't know the answer to that. But
I heard he was running appointments, and he was so tired of the traffic that he was like, "There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way to measure a roof. I don't have to drive 3 hours one way just to get up on a roof and measure it to provide an estimate. There's got to be a solution." That's what I heard.
It very well could be. And like I said, there's my story, there's their story, and the truth's somewhere in the middle.
Stories.
But if you ever wanted to find out, that's the guy you need to talk to.
Awesome. And you said that I think years ago when you came over, I'd like to consider you a friend.
Yeah.
I had you over our old office in Laurel, Maryland, and I think you mentioned that EagleView had 3 types of customers, and it was government, insurance, contractors.
Yes.
And I thought back in the day that was kind of the order. The government was the largest, then the insurance carriers, then the contractors.
Yeah.
And nowadays you're saying that the contractor base is number 1.
So now we have 4 verticals.
Okay.
The same 3 that you mentioned, and we have a new one called CID, which is commercial imagery and data. And construction is the largest of the 4 verticals now. Government is second, and insurance third, and then CID is is our.
Now, what's the reason for that? Is it because contractor base is growing, government shrinking, or
Actually, it's because people got sick of using tape measure. I mean, it's very interesting. Obviously, I'm not telling anyone a secret to tell you that we've had a lot of competition come into our space over the past few years, and yet we continue to grow at a pretty substantial rate. And it's because two things. One, you can either grow from market share, which was the early days of how we grew. But now, percentage-wise of market share, we probably lose a little bit of traction every year as competition becomes more robust. That's just the natural phase of things. However, more and more customers are not using tape measures, are not thumbing it. They want that more accurate bid. And if you think about the influx of either the platforms that the distribution's putting online and or the CRMs, now people aren't, using the thumb method, putting that looks like it's 13 squares and I charge $400 a square. That roof is going to be $5,200. That's gone out the window now. Now they are utilizing every line length. They're taking it in as an API. It's going into their CRM system, and they're coming out where they actually know the exact margin on every aspect of what they do. And that just compounds itself on more and more people leaning on these solutions that are in the market, EagleView being one.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable to think that people are still using tape measures.
Yeah, well,
right now.
And the funny thing is when I say this, everyone looks at me kind of like the guys that still do, because I run into them. They want to tell me all about the fact I can't be as accurate, and my answer to them is you're probably right. Like if you want to take the time to accurately measure every single line length, you can get more accurate than I am. But I'm here to tell you that on the last 300 roofs you've been on, you put the thing down, you go down, and you get close enough. And if you're within 6 inches, you think that's good. And I'm well within 6 inches. So I would argue that, the roof data that we supply to the market is more accurate than the tape measure will give, just because of the human error that comes with it. Not that you couldn't be more accurate. You certainly could, but to a very, very light degree. And why would you bother?
Mm-hmm. Now, typically, does EagleView round to the nearest foot and they round up?
So this is interesting, because the carriers over time have told us that they want to use one of our competitors because they give the inches. The history behind this is that we didn't want our PDF to be overloaded with data that you said so much stuff that you couldn't read it. The summary data that you get at the end of the EagleView report is to the closest inch. So when we do the mathematics of it, we are absolutely going to the closest inch. In fact, if you wanted your PDFs from EagleView, which are changing soon, we're going to be going to a digital delivery model. But if you wanted your PDFs to have it to the closest inch, we can, at the check of a box, we can make sure that every PDF that comes to American Home Contractors had it to the closest inch.
Mm-hmm.
We measure to the closest inch. We just don't put it to the closest inch because it cloudies up the report and puts so many numbers in the way. And when you start getting facets that are close together and everything, there's just not enough space on the PDF for all of that. And that's really what it was about, was just clarity of being able to see. But forever, we're now, the imagery we're collecting now in very, very high level number of cases is 1 inch per pixel. So, we're within 1 inch on every measurement when our imagery is to 1 inch per pixel. Like, you can't be off by more than that. And when you watch our techs work and you see how they're looking at 5 pictures at once on a computer screen and they put a ridge line on, well, if that ridge line on the photo that they're putting it on looks like it's accurate, but then you look off to one of the obliques, you would notice that if it's not accurate, you will absolutely be able to see it hang off the edge of the ridge. And if you can't right away, as soon as you put the rake on, the rake would be hanging off the roof. So just the sheer mathematics of the way we put things together make it so that it 100% has to be accurate. And unbeknownst to most people, these are still very human interfaces, and there's checks and balances and quality control that goes into every one. One of the reasons we don't turn them around in 5 minutes is because we take the time to make sure that they're right.
Cool. And you guys are by far the most accurate. We've used a lot of different measurement services in the past, and we've always determined that EagleView is the most accurate and the most trusted.
Well,
That's why I like to think we're a good customer.
You are a good customer. Yeah. And you're very forward thinking, which anytime we're trying something new, you've always been to one of my go-tos, because I know if I say, hey, Dave, this is new, not only will you try it, but you'll get the feedback and you'll give us meaningful information back. So it helps us progress.
Oh yeah. We love you guys to keep, revising the product, making it better. Now, can we go back to aerial imagery and like the beginning of that? I think you showed me some images earlier with like a homing pigeon.
Yeah. So
to it.
I gave the images to these guys. So it's if we could put it up, that would be fantastic. I don't know, but the earliest imagery I think was taken from a hot air balloon, and it was you sent a camera up on a timer that once the hot air balloon got to a certain height or whatever it was or time, it was going to snap a picture and it would get one picture or so. That happened before the turn of the century. But I think in the 1920s, if my memory serves me correct, or in that era, there was somebody that started putting cameras on the chest of carrier pigeons, and the carrier pigeon would fly and the camera would take pictures. And then when they came in, he would develop the film and see things from the sky that you don't normally see. And then that progressed, and then eventually somebody put it on an airplane, and one thing leads to another. But if you were to go into our labs and see the cameras that we're working with today and how they operate, just like anything else, this technology has gotten better. It's really incredible what we're able to capture from the sky and the use cases. I mean, one of the things that I think is just nonstop, as I mentioned, that we have this CID division, this commercial imagery and data. In a lot of ways, they're the boiler room for new ideas, the creativity of new ideas, because they don't really have a set market that they're going after. They're selling imagery and data to anybody who wants to buy that, from real estate to telecom you go across the board. It gets really creative. And it's not us that's the creator; it's our customers that tell us. So there's bug spray companies that use it to figure out the volume of homes. Same thing with HVAC contractors. There's a whole bunch of data that we can provide that allows a HVAC contractor to do a manual J calculation. The use cases are just endless, and it's all because what makes us truly unique in the market is that core competency of being the best capture and developer of the imagery in the industry. Those are, if you were to really boil it down to what does EagleView do better than anybody else, we capture high quality imagery from the sky, and we have a GIS department that knows how to sew it together faster and better than anybody else.
And how do you guys do that? You guys have your own fleet of planes?
Yeah, we have
technology.
We do. We have our own fleet of planes, and we manufacture all of our own camera systems in-house. We've got in our corporate headquarters in Rochester, New York, we've got a entire division there that's designing lenses and putting together the camera systems, and
wow, so all the hardware
is put together there. The mathematics of what elevation are they flying and how do you sew it all together all comes out of there. And the GIS, Rochester, New York, interestingly enough, is the hotbed for imagery and GIS. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that that's where Kodak originated. But then the colleges that were there were supporting that. So Rochester Institute of Technology and University of Rochester have two of the best GIS departments anywhere in the world. So that's our core talent base and the people we're drawing from to help build us into the future.
How do you find the pilots for these planes?
So that's a really kind of I wouldn't say it's a dirty little secret. It's not a dirty little secret, but it's actually really one of the more mutually beneficial relationships there are in any business anywhere. If you want to become a pilot, how do you do that? You have to take some tests and get your license, but then you also have to do your airtime, and then you have to put in a certain number of hours. Well, for most people who want to become a pilot, you can do that either through the military, or you can pay to rent or buy an aircraft so that you can get your hours in. EagleView gives a bunch of young people that want to become pilots. They don't have to be young, but I think most of them, in most cases, they are. The opportunity to get as many hours as they need flying our aircraft. As long as they fly where we tell them to fly, we get the benefit of them capturing the images from the sky. They get the benefit of not having to rent for airtime and to be able to get their license faster. And so there's a tremendous amount of turnover because as soon as they're able to get their license, they go work for an airline or wherever they take their career next. But there's always somebody waiting in the wings to fill in the blank. So it's really
That's awesome.
It's a great relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. And when do you guys fly the planes, and where?
Well, we've there's a lot of answers to that question, and I'm not going to get too detailed, but we try to fly in northern climates. We try to fly between the leaves falling off the trees, the snow, and the leaves coming back on the trees. So we do what's called leaf off capture, and because that way we can see all of the facets of roofs and things like that we need to see inside walls of buildings. But we also tie that with contracts that we get for people who want different captures. So as you can imagine, county assessors is a big place that we sell that commercial imagery and data. We're flying for people all of the time on flight contracts. But in addition to that, we also just have strategic capture that we fly the top 100 DMAs at least once a year, most of them twice a year. We fly for profit when someone pays us to fly. And then we fly areas. We try to mesh in places like in next to your world, we had a shortage of imagery on the Delmarva Peninsula for a long time. It was a strategic area that I needed in order to grow my business. We just decided to take the bullet and go fly the Delmarva Peninsula. There's no DMA out there that's asking us to do it. It's just we needed it for our reports businesses. So.
Interesting. And all the imagery comes from the planes. There's no satellite imagery.
Well, that's not quite true. If you get a premium roof report from EagleView, it comes from our imagery.
Okay.
If you get, and many of you have gotten them, a 2D report, that is satellite. And the reason we call it a 2D report is because we can't guarantee the accuracy because it's 2 dimensions. So that's why, and look, we're not unique, right? Any one of our competitors has the exact same problem. Even if they do have access to oblique imagery from somewhere, there are places where they don't, and they're vast where they don't. They will deliver a premium roof report of some type back to you and not tell you.
That's not inaccurate. That is not accurate or whatever.
It just can't be accurate because it's taken from 2 dimensions, so they're guessing. Where we won't guess, we'll tell you we couldn't get it. However, we give you the framework that if you go in and put in the accurate pitch for each facet, it'll automatically build, and then it will be as accurate as any other EagleView report you could buy from us.
So if you could speak to it, how does that work with the technology and the 3D imagery versus the 2D? And obviously there's algorithms and there's geometry involved, I'm assuming?
There's 100%. There's geometry involved. I don't know that I can verbally explain that. I think you'd need a video to really understand it, but I'll try to paint as close a picture as I could. I stated earlier that our techs are looking at 5 separate images when they're building out a premium roof report. And every time they put a line on a rake or on an eave or on a ridge, that line is not just showing up on the picture they're drawing it on, it's showing up on every picture, all 5 pictures. And so the accuracy comes from if any one of those are off on any one picture, as soon as you try to tie it all together, the red light goes off and says this thing doesn't line up somewhere. So it pretty much will, it's idiot proof. Now, that doesn't mean that mistakes don't get made. But our track record says of all the EagleViews that go out versus the number that come back to us, it's well over 1 in 10,000 reports that people claim aren't accurate. And the ones that when we dig deeper into it find, it's close to 1 in 100,000 that we find that are really, really out, unless they picked the wrong house or we did the wrong. There's other things that can go wrong, but in terms of accuracy of measurements, we're very comfortable with where we're at.
So what about speed of measurements? Why do sometimes when I order an EagleView report, it comes right away, and sometimes it takes a few hours or what?
If you order an EagleView report that has never been done before, and our techs have to go and measure that, first it goes and sits in a queue, depending on how many orders are coming in. If there's a massive hailstorm or whatever, it could take an hour before they get to it. Could take 3 hours before they get to it, just depending on volume, right? Once they get to it, measuring a 40 square cut up roof probably doesn't take them much more than 15 minutes in order to do it. So that's how long it takes to do. And so you're typically the majority of the waiting time that you have is on a queue. For the ones that you get back instantly, we've got different amounts of time that we're willing to look at this, because things do change over time and we want to make sure that we don't miss an addition or things like that. But for reports that we've done in the last year, if we have a previously measured, we call it a previously measured report. And if that shows up, then we deliver it instantly because it's already done. And that's one of the advantages of having the data in the bank of data is that many times there's more than one person wanting the same information.
And it costs money to generate that report, right? So you can't pre-measure everything and then have it queued up.
They all cost money to generate, because a human is measuring them. But even the previously measured ones still have to go through. They still have to go through the queue, and then they also have to go through quality control on the way out, because we do recheck them against the most current image. Like I said, if you had one that was done 3 years ago, we may not measure it again. But before it goes back out to the customer, we are going to compare that report and the imagery on that report to the most recent imagery to make sure that if there's been a dorm or anything. So this is very important for all you EagleView users out there. On every time you place a report, there is a checkbox, and most of you just skip over it because it's the way it goes. But it does ask you, have there been any changes to the structure in the last 3 years? It may say 4 years.
Interesting.
If you check the box, you won't get a previously measured. So the chances of that coming back quick goes away, because we will 100% remeasure that because you told us to by checking that box. If you just breeze over it, and the house, the last time we did it was 2009, and there's been an addition, we're going to turn around a previously measured report. We're going to QC to make sure that everything lines up, but we may not check it again because you didn't check the box. So that's kind of our telltale, and it is our ask of our customers that if there's information share it with us, and then we'll make sure that we get it right.
Is there a way to automate that process entirely, or is there always going to be a manual human being in the loop?
So this is kind of an interesting thing. There are ways to automate it, okay? But there's what goes into this that really has continued to make sure that we have a human doing it. We do have machine learning doing certain parts of the process. We have machine learning probably doing the footprint, the perimeter of the roof from an orthogonal image, top down. That takes up time that the tech doesn't have to spend to draw that. However, every time we capture a picture, that picture is being captured from an airplane that's at a different altitude. Now there's an altimeter in that aircraft that tells our techs how to make sure they sew all the images together. But sometimes we have 1-inch imagery, sometimes we have 2-inch imagery, sometimes we have 3-inch imagery, and each one of them has their benefits, right? You have 1-inch imagery, it's extremely clear, but you have 3-inch imagery, you can collect that a lot faster. So if you have vast areas of space, trying to build a machine learning program that's capable of taking all that mathematics, all the different sizes into account and be the same. Now, if we ever got to the point where we got so good that we could capture everything we wanted at our highest absolute quality imagery, that becomes a lot easier. But then the customer would feel the negative output of the areas where we need the speed, we wouldn't have imagery. So quite frankly, it's a balance of both, but to be able to get machine learning to do it accurately every time, which again, you had made the statement earlier that EagleView is the most accurate. These are the reasons why. Our competitors are putting machine learning stuff on this, but they have the same problems, and that's why you don't always get the same results that you get with us.
Interesting. So it's about flying the same altitude and taking the same types of pictures, right?
Pictures.
1-inch, 3-inch, or whatever.
Yeah, and the different camera systems that you're using. So, for instance, if you're flying 1-inch imagery, you can fly with a more telescopic lens, but every time you make a path, you may only be catching 700 yards, and I'm making a number up, but you may be only catching a path 700 yards wide. Whereas if you're flying 3-inch imagery, it isn't just a multiple of 3, it's a multiple of 9, because we were talking about square inches. Well, how many square inches are in 3 square inches? And the answer is 9, right? Because you got 3 up and 3 across, and so the speed is close to 9 times faster when you the further out you go. But you also have customers that want you to have 1-inch imagery for a variety of reasons. And really what's become of that is now we have all of this imagery from all these years and years. And with the advent of machine learning, now we can pull all kinds of information out of that. So if you had a house that was re-roofed in 2008 and then re-roofed again in 2020, we are teaching the machine to look at the imageries of that house and tell you. And so you, in the future, you will, when you get a report, you will be able to see when the last time this roof changed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So that's something that's very
How close
real.
can you guys zoom in on the house?
It's 1 inch per pixel.
1 inch per pixel.
1 inch per pixel.
So you can see like the granules on the shingles?
No, you can't see the granules on shingles. So,
So what about hail hits?
well, hail hits we can see from drones. That's what the drone program is all about.
Okay.
That's a whole different story. Damage detection, not so much. However, roof condition in general, we have been able to teach the machine a rating score of 1 to 5. So, 1 being very high quality roof without any noticeable difference. 5, and there's a variety of things we look at, right? Is there debris on the roof? Is there missing shingles? Is there, on flat roofs, certainly, is there any ponding? There's all kinds of data points. And the smaller the number of inches per pixel, the higher the quality of that scoring system will be. And it's really the future of where we're headed. Now, if the beauty of machine learning and artificial intelligence and the speed at which it's moving is that things are getting faster and easier to do. The downside of that for several businesses, and I don't think that roofing contractor necessarily falls into this just yet, but if you're a software company, and we have lots of partners that are software companies, it's going to be kind of scary. I mean, if the day ever comes where American home contractors can talk to talk into ChatGPT and say, build me a CRM, and then when it does, then you say refine it to build a tighter margin, and you just keep talking it through this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The future of those businesses, I think, is concerning.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I think our bread and butter is the fact that our core competency is gathering imagery and sewing it together from the sky, and that's an expensive proposition to get into, and it's not anytime in the near future that any machine's going to be doing.
It's the data you have, right?
It's the data that
proprietary data and the patents and the algorithms and all that.
That's correct. And so the future of where we're headed, I believe, is that we are going to be the data provider from an imagery perspective to all kinds of different businesses. And I think that some of the value-added products that we've built over the years will continue to service that market. It's very lucrative for us. But I think as we move forward, it's going to be more advantageous for us to find the people who do that best and supply them with the data, the raw data that they can utilize in order to come up with the solutions to the problems they're trying to fix.
So they can build off the top of your platform.
That's correct.
Data as a service, right?
Data as a service, that's correct. And I think that is the future of, long-term, why we will be around when others aren't, is because we are the owner of that data.
So with the data, could I train a model to identify different types of roofs and do that myself, or are you guys going to still own that type of?
So it depends on how much you want to pay for a license, I think, is what the future will tell you.
Okay.
If you wanted to, I think when you buy products from EagleView, I don't think that, we have probably 2 contracts in the market right now where we allow people to extract data from our imagery.
Okay.
But those, they're tens of millions of dollars in contracts. They're not.
Because I want to find out where all the 20-plus-year-old roofs are. I want to find out where all the number 5 roofs are that need to be replaced. I want to find all the wood shake roofs that I can pitch them on a replacement.
Well, good news is you can do that today, Dave.
Excellent.
We will give you roof condition today. We can give you type of roof today, and probably within a 18-month, 2-year period, we'll be able to tell you when the last time a roof that we had imagery on from before and now has been changed, because we'll be able to see the change detection differences. And I forgot the original question, but it was, I don't think we necessarily are in a race to certainly in the roofing space, because we're such a predominant name, and we want to build off that the equity that we have there. But if you were in the bug repellent industry, and you said, we'd sell you a contract that just gave you access to our imagery, and you could derive whatever data you wanted out of it. And that could be a rev share, that could be just a total value of contract. But there's a lot of ways to write that up, and I think in the future we will have more and more and more of those as time goes on.
Cool. Yeah, that's very interesting. What about like an X-Files? Do you guys have imagery that is stored in like
You've been thinking about these questions for
well, I
a
mean,
while.
you can zoom into that property and you can see some pretty interesting things, I'm sure.
And I'm going to tell you 100% the truth on this. The rumor has it that there is an X-Files, that there are pictures that do not, when the techs the GIS specialists are sewing the pictures together, if there is something on there that the world should not see, that could come back to haunt us, they do get removed.
Oh.
But story has it is that somebody has access to them. They're not giving them to me, so I don't know anything about it.
You can't pay extra for those.
Yeah, you can't pay extra for them. I don't think they're for sale. And we do our best to limit that. What is interesting is that because we've been at this so long, because we are the best at it, one of our, as you would imagine, one of our customers is the government. And so the no-fly zones that a lot of other companies, we get access to places. Now, that imagery is only available for us to sell to whoever bought it, meaning the government or whoever is allowed to have access to that information. And I don't know that this is 100% true, but I've heard this rumor, and I believe it's true, is that, like the White House and Fort Knox are like two of the only places where we haven't been allowed to fly historically.
Fort Knox. So is there gold in Fort Knox?
I have no idea.
Oh, I guess you wouldn't know. You don't have the imagery.
We weren't allowed to fly there, and I don't think you can see through the building anyway. But yeah, there's a couple places. I think Area 51's probably one as well. But but camps and Army bases and things that other planes aren't allowed to go anywhere near, they want our information, and so they give us access to fly over those places.
Interesting. So what happens when a hurricane comes through or a natural catastrophe? Does the government or insurance companies reach out to EagleView and allow you guys to fly there first to get some ground source data on the devastation, the destruction, all that stuff? Like
we have a business model built around this. We call it DRP, disaster relief photography, and it's when we know a hurricane's coming, we deploy assets to get as many of them in the area as we need to capture the area that we think is going to be affected. And so, hurricanes, hailstorms, they're all a little bit different in how you have to approach them. Hurricanes after a hurricane, if it's still cloudy, it doesn't do you a whole lot of good to go up in the air. And we've got competitors that will tell you they've got the first image of after. But if you were to go and buy their package, which we have done and secretly shopped, you'll see that you really can't see much. And when they show you a picture, it's like for the 1 second that they actually got a hole in the cloud that they got a picture. So you'd buy a lot of non-data. We get in the air as fast as we possibly can, post-storm, post any cat event. I think it's Cat 2 or higher. I think hurricanes certainly fit the bill. But anytime that we've got contracts with the carriers, that the DRP flights are available to those customers as soon as we can get them up. And we try to get them up within the 3-day period as fast as we possibly can. And all of those are 1 inch in terms of the image capture that we're doing, because you want as good of imagery as you possibly can there. Those are available to contractors as well. And we've done some, you haven't heard from me on this because we haven't had any catastrophic events in and around your area. But, we've got contractors in Georgia and in Florida and in California after the fires. We 100% made deals with contractors there to make it available to them in ways that can help them. So that is something. And as we're moving our business more and more to subscription, there's value adds that we intend to add into the benefits that they get for being under contract with us. And that's certainly an easy one for us to just overlay, that you get this. If it's in your area, you get it. And as soon as it happens, it'll be in your pocket.
Cool. you want to shift over to autonomous drones?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. What
Cool.
would you like
So,
to know?
well, what were those drones in New Jersey?
I have no idea. I
No
have
idea.
no idea. Well, I mean, I know what the government's told me now, but I don't know that I find it really hard to believe that the change of administration allowed us to know, what the drones were. I think the whole thing just seemed kind of kooky to me. Like, apparently we knew what they were all along. We just didn't want to tell anyone. I don't know.
Very interesting.
The whole thing
Yeah.
was weird.
Oh yeah. It's a
So-
little scary, a little concerning.
It is. It is. It is. Either we knew or we didn't know, and I'm not sure which it is.
So they weren't Eagle View drones.
They had nothing to do with Eagle View drones.
Not flying around
No.
checking out properties.
Not that I'm aware of. Now, if one of my customers happened to be flying a drone during that time frame, I would imagine they were doing it during the day, and I would imagine that they were doing it for the right purposes. So I don't keep tabs on when our customers buy a drone from us. They're free to fly it where and whenever they'd like, I suppose, as long as they're licensed and it's a legal place to fly.
Mm-hmm.
The app will tell you whether or not this is a no-fly zone or not, so you're not going to put it up in an area where you can't. Interesting story about that. This happened to me. I was with a customer. He's like, I bought this drone and it won't let me fly. And he's in Highland Park, Dallas, right? And I'm like, doesn't make any sense. So we go there, and it was a house 2 doors down from George Bush's home, and that was a no-fly zone. You're not allowed to put one up in the air around an ex-president, apparently. So that's what ended up coming back. But there's all kinds of things that come up and unique things. It's an interesting business because you never know what you're going to run into.
When did Eagle View get involved with drones?
So Eagle View got involved with drones long before it came to the construction side of the business. I'm going to butcher this a little bit because I'm not sure the exact date, but I'm close. I think it was like 2017. And it was at an insurance convention for the insurance carriers. The president of one of the carriers got up and said that by the end of the year, we are going to be able to desk adjust the majority of our exterior claims. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have any. He just thought the technology was there, that somebody would be able to build it for him. And our CEO at the time says, well, we're the guys to do that. So they went and they started this. At the time, it was the service was called OnSite, and it was a mixture of both drones and or ladder assist.
I remember it. Yeah, we did a couple.
And it didn't go that well, to be quite frankly. But one of the things that came out of it was our relationship with our drone provider, and the technology they had was with this autonomous flying drone is far better than I think anybody else in the industry in terms of the capability. And
What drone is that?
it's Skydio is the partner, all American made. They work very, very closely with the federal government and the Department of Defense, and they do a lot of different things for a lot of different. Anyway, they don't sell the drones to the general public. They only sell them to the government and or enterprises. And so we're the enterprise that they chose to do business with on the single family and multifamily properties. And they created a flight pattern for us specifically for home scanning. And that's what you see today. So what's really cool about it is the cool factor of Eagle View's Assess program is second to none. I mean, it's, if you want to, the use cases that we've gotten out of it that we weren't expecting are vast. But ironically, I mean, certainly what it's made to do is scan for damage and be able to assess through machine learning whether or not you've got anomalies on the roof and what they are and so on and so forth. And we get better at that all the time. That's a constant, we're constantly training that machine to get better and better at understanding what it is that it's looking at. But some of the other things that have come from that, historically, the number of leads that contractors get by showing up, pushing a button on a drone, and then and look, you've seen it, so you'll know what I'm talking about. But to the people watching out there, unless you've seen it, you would never know this.
Oh, that's wild.
But the flight plan that it does, it essentially stays about 4 feet off the deck consistently. It always faces into the face of the facet. So if you change facets, the drone spins and it looks into the facet, and it moves essentially about 5 feet at a time and stops and takes a picture and stops and takes a picture. Well, if you were manually flying a drone, it would look like manually flying a drone. You just fly it around and it would, and you take some pictures, but there would be no consistency to them, no nothing to them. what allows our machine learning, as I talked about earlier, with why don't we measure from machine learning and having different heights and different angles and all stuff, this eliminates all that from a damage detection perspective. So the consistency of the imagery that our machine is learning on is always the same every single time. And it just allows us to have just a much more product, to the point where, I think at this point we are now by far the most important purveyor of drone imaging for damage detection in the market. And we were probably last to the dance of all the people that were out there. So we've just kind of soared by them. And in a lot of ways, the autonomous drone has something to do with that. A lot of ways, some of the other things that we can add value with in terms of roof reports and our relationships with the carriers add something to that. And then certainly just the ability to get really good information from the machine learning from consistency of pictures.
So how does that work with the measurements and the aerial imagery from the drone? Can the drone go out there, or will there be a time when you could send a drone out there and it could take the aerial imagery and then you guys can put together the report even if you didn't have the flight pattern above it?
David, I think the technology is there to do that now. Now it's just a legal battle. The Part 107 license that you need to commercially fly a drone pretty much states that you have to have line of sight to the drone that you're flying at all times. So the laws would have to change to have non-line of sight. And then battery technology would have to greatly improve if you were going to carry any distance to get the drone to go capture. And it would have to last long enough to do the whole roof. One of the nice things about our program with the autonomous flight is that the drone does know in real space and in lat lawn where it is at all times. So even if you're scanning a big house, which you've had this experience before, and you run out of battery, the drone comes back, lands, you replace the battery, and it starts right where it left off. You have no, the only downtime you have is the exchange of the battery. You don't have to figure out where what you missed and what you didn't miss. It knows. So it provides a lot of stuff. But in terms of will we ever be able to just send a drone, it's more of a legal thing. I think the technology's there now. I think battery needs to come a little ways. But from a fixed wing perspective, you could. I just don't know that from a fixed wing is the most efficient way to capture imagery for damage detection.
Okay, so right now it's on site only.
Yeah.
Got to have line of sight of the drone. Interesting. Okay, yeah, we're just looking forward to the day when we can launch them out of our office and go down and measure a home 20 miles down the road.
Look, I think, I know what a fan you are of Tesla, and he's got a lot more to do with this than anybody, because the battery technology is going to have to be there more than anything.
Okay.
That's the biggest limiter at the moment.
Yeah, I guess if you have a bigger battery, it's heavier, and you have a bigger drone, less efficient. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Are you guys involved in anything else with the autonomous drones, or is it just with this Access program?
So it's Assess.
Assess.
It's all right. We've done a lot over the past year on two fronts. We've done a lot to improve our machine learning to make sure that we're getting better and better at understanding the anomalies. The second thing we've done a lot of work at is being able to sew together the imagery from facets that are very large. There's complexities with that. So when you're doing an apartment building and such, when we first started, we could only sew together like 300 square feet maximum facet. Otherwise, the whole thing kind of got wonky. Well, that's improved greatly. And now we can do the majority of just about any multifamily
unit.
We are starting work on making sure that we can now get the sidewalls as well. So that you can look for that in the future in terms of damage detection. But what a lot of people don't know about our Assess program is when you sign up for the all-inclusive one, you get a variety of things. You get, if you fly the drone, you get your roof report for free as part of the package. You get your detection report for free. You get, what we call view, which is just random images of the home. So you can get your beauty shots for your marketing before and after, things like that.
Nice.
So there's value there. We see that taking the next step when we move to the sidewalls for damage detection. Now you can be able to get your measurements for wall data as well and things like that. So there's some good things coming. And then the final phase is going into the flat roofing world. And the flat roofing world is a little bit different because, quite frankly, there's pretty good solutions now for that by flying it yourself. They're not flying it for damage detection in most cases. They're flying it usually for thermal.
Yeah. Are these infrared drones?
There are infrared drones. The Skydio drone that we use for house scan isn't big enough to carry an infrared camera.
Okay.
Skydio does make a drone big enough that we have access to. We just haven't put in the time to get the autonomous flight there and or the machine learning that we want from it. But that's coming.
That'd be kind of cool to
we want to do that.
inspect solar panels, solar roofs, that type of stuff autonomously.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Well, the solar panels we could do you could do 100%
just with
a thermal.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, with a thermal camera, I mean, the being able to tell whether a panel's still good or not shows up like that with the thermal camera. And I think when we get to the point where we go to that thermal route, I think that, the partners that we have today, I mentioned National Grid. Well, National Grid has a lot of fields full of solar panels, right? And right now they have to send somebody out there to check them and all this other. We're going to solve that problem in an instant and be able to fly that field every day, and they'll be removing panels that are either causing the system to slow down on the regular.
Oh yeah,
and a lot more efficiently. So there's a lot of future in the assess program.
That would be great. Yeah, let's segue into solar. So, what solar products does EagleView have, and I mean, how much more involved are you guys going to be in solar?
Yeah, I don't think we're planning to get out of solar. So we've got a couple different things about our solar program, but the first and most exciting thing about our solar program has been the TrueDesign platform. We talked about the different imagers that we take and being able to understand the pitch of facets and so on and so forth. Well, when you're taking those obliques and measuring against the orthos, you also know the height of trees, the height of chimneys, the height of buildings next to it. You put all that into a mathematical equation without having to use LiDAR, where you're guessing based off of, it's just open source LiDAR information that could be 50 years old, or not 15, not 50. You have a very accurate understanding of where the shadows are being cast. So what TrueDesign does in a nutshell is it makes a three-dimensional model of the home, as we do with everything we do. But then it takes into account the flight path of the sun 365 days a year, every 15 minutes. And minus a cloud being in the way, which I don't know how we would model that out, but no matter what you're doing, you got to figure out a way to model that out. We know exactly where all the shadows are cast every 6 inches on a roof, 365 days a year, every 15 minutes.
That's cool.
So when you talk about the accuracy of an EagleView report to begin with, which you had already stated you feel it's the most accurate in the industry, you start with that level of accuracy, and then you start placing solar panels on that roof in a way that you also know the SAV and the TSRF of what each panel is generating. Because of this modeling, you can look at it from, I need to generate 8 kilowatts, or you can look at it from, I only want to install 15 panels, or you can look at it from, I only want to install on on facets that are not facing the street for beauty reasons. You choose whatever the thought process is of the homeowner or of you as a contractor that you want to sell, and you make those the parameters, and TrueDesign will place those panels on the roof to get you the most efficient system that you could possibly look for. So
that's cool.
Yeah. And it may even, just move a panel over a foot, where you may have just put two together. It may say, no, you want to move this one over, because it knows that particular thing gets a shadow from something during
it's based on shading. Does it take into consideration fire setbacks and other things?
It has setbacks built into it, but they are 100% variable. You can change them to whatever you'd like based on the code in the market that you're working in.
Cool.
So it's up to you. But it goes even further. I mean, you talk about the different kinds of panels. I mean, you can tell it that you're using 3x5 panels. You can tell it you're using 4x6 panels. You can tell it you're using just the Tesla solar roof. It will tell you where you need your live tiles and where you need your dummy tiles, and and all of those.
We'll do Tesla solar roof.
Oh yeah,
100%
we'll do a Tesla solar roof, and it'll do both certainty and GAF products. All you have to do is put in what the exposure is that they're giving, and it will place those panels where they are most effective on that roof.
Well, I know you guys just recently formed a partnership with Tesla, right?
Yes, we do have a partnership with Tesla, and that partnership is. You know this because as a Tesla solar contractor, but it's for their preferred contractor network, and it basically is allowing them to utilize TrueDesign and or just ordering it through them, the data output from it, where you may not get the interface with it, but the XML and the will automatically deliver the estimate that Tesla approves for your use, so you can price everything out from a very accurate perspective for the first time around. No need to true up, and all the pains that come with solar. Now, solar still has pains that I can't solve, right? I mean, you got to know where the rafters are. There's things that we don't give you the answer to, but you can't do both. I mean, we don't see inside the house, so I don't.
Yeah. But from a design standpoint, accuracy of measurements, that's great.
And output. Yeah. I mean, you're combining the accuracy of the measurements with the accuracy of the output, and that's where this thing went really wrong. And over the last 18 months, so I'm a believer that solar's ripe for this comeback that I think is going to be magnificent. I think the people who are still in the business are real businessmen. I think they run efficient businesses, and I think that maybe some of the people that were in this business before were getting fat on the hog and didn't really know how to run an efficient business. Well, now that we've got the right people in the right places running this thing, the efficiency that EagleView can help generate in terms of not needing to true up to selling exactly to the homeowner what they're expecting to get the first time, rather than selling them something, coming back and saying, well, we did this on-site test and it's not going to produce this, so now you got to redo the contract. All those things go out the window if you're using EagleView from the get-go.
So are you seeing more roofing contractors adopt solar since you guys have been more involved?
I would love... I've had this position, and I don't know that I'm going to be right. I'm hoping that I'm right. But I've had this position for many, many years, going back to, when I was a manufacturer's rep. I've always, I think you'd be hard-pressed to argue me on this point. The best time to install a solar system is...
when you're replacing a roof.
When you're replacing a roof.
Yep.
Who's replacing a roof? A roofing contractor. So now I'm replacing the roof. I'm responsible if it's going to leak. I'm the one that's putting down the footings and this, everything I need in order to attach the solar to it. I'm the one that's flashing that in. This is the proper place and time for this. Every other method that I've ever thought of, even if it's a solar company and a roofing company working together to do it at the same time, if there's a problem, who owns it? And either that has to be contractually obligated up front. And even if that is the case, you start to have too many problems. The next thing you know, you're just like, I'm done with this and I'm out. But if you own the whole entire process, it's done right. It is the proper way it should be done. And my position on this has always been, I truly believe that eventually the roofing community will own the solar space. And we're seeing that in what I wasn't expecting. And unfortunately, I should say it's not unfortunate, it's just the way it went. The solar industry took kind of a little bit of a downturn over the past 18 months.
Interest rates.
Yeah, interest rates had a lot to do with it. But I think some of the efficiency things that I talked about had a lot to do with it. But what we saw happen at that time is the guys that were running really good businesses and really efficient, what did they do? They all started roofing companies.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't so much that the roofing company was owning the solar space. It was kind of the opposite. The really good, well-run solar businesses were getting into the roofing space.
We saw that locally, yep.
Yeah. So eventually, who wins that race? It's going to be who runs more efficient businesses. And I think in some cases that'll be the solar companies. In some cases it'll be the roofing businesses. That's the part I didn't see. I really thought it was going to be the roofing businesses that dominated it.
I mean, it seems like things are continuing to come together, roofing and solar merging together. Yep. So like you said, I mean, it's very tough to operate independently at this point, doing just solar or just roofing, because you want to own that rooftop.
Yeah. And look, you probably know this better than I ever will, because this isn't a world I live in, but you probably tie the electrician into that same discussion.
Yep. Roofing, solar, electricity.
Yeah.
Yep, all combined. So do you want to do a quick run through of EagleView's products, pricing model, and where you guys are heading?
I want to talk about data a little bit too, because we didn't really talk about that, but we touched on it here and there. But we talked about the different data points that we can take from imagery, and that could be a variety of things. Like we talked about roof condition and we talked about roofing materials, but it can be anything. If you're in the pool business and you want you clean pools for a living, I can tell you where every single pool is without you having to go through Google Earth and look for yourself. I can just deliver those addresses.
Are you guys measuring pools too, or just have the imagery for it?
We just have the imagery, and that, but the machine knows what a pool looks like,
Okay.
and it'll tell you all the addresses that
Yeah,
are pools.
this place has a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where the fire hydrants are. If you're buying a house and you have lived through a fire at some point in your life, you have an emotional connection to knowing that if there's a problem in your house, it'll be able to be taken care of. Ahead of time, the real estate companies know ahead of time that how far away the closest fire hydrant is. So how many pothole covers are there in Silver Springs, Maryland?
How many?
We know, right? I mean, I don't know sitting here, but if you want that information, we can provide that for you.
Oh,
so if you're the town manager and you're trying to decide whether you need to buy 3 or whether buying 400 of them is a good idea, we're the guys to talk to. So I mean.
So fencing,
driveways, landscaping. I mean, it's endless.
Wow.
The places that we can go and the things we can do. And look, it's no more than just telling us, what do you want to have happen? What information do you want to know? And we're going to be able to build the tools to get you that information. So when you asked before, can anyone go and just derive? We're pretty protective of the derivative rights of what you can do with our imagery, unless you pay us for it. Now, if you pay us for it, and we can create a model where we can continue to make money while you're making money, then I think that'll happen. But if you just want us to do it for you, we can do that too.
Okay. Yeah. I was just wondering if you could give me the raw images, and then I could figure out a way to determine the age of the roof or what type of roof is on.
The answer is yes, but again, it's the derivative rights. What's the value of that for us long term? If you're pulling that from our world, we're going to want to participate in that.
Okay. So EagleView wants to, have the best data, but also wants to be able to manipulate the data or, optimize the data for general use.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. Anything else you want to talk about data?
No, I think I mean, we touched on everything. And the last thing I will tell you is that we are having a pretty significant change in our go-to-market strategy. We are looking to move our revenue from this transactional model that we've had year over year, where you pay X number of dollars for a report. And the model that we want to get to is this one where you're just basically giving us a monthly VIG, and for that you're going to get reports. And depending on the level that you want to go to, we're trying to develop something called EagleView One. I'd say trying to develop, or we've developed it, we just haven't got it to the market yet. But you start with imagery, and when you sign up for EagleView One, you have access to the imagery, and then from there, it's just what entitlements do you want access to? Do you want access to roof condition data? Do you want access to pool data? Do you want access to being able to measure land for landscaping purposes? Do you want roof data, type of roof, measurements of roof, whatever, sidewalls, number of windows? I mean, are you in the window business at all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
so right, so yeah. If you had a lead come in, and you just always had your EagleView imagery account up, homeowner calls you up and says, we'd like you to come out and give us an estimate. Well, you want to qualify that person before you just invest the time. If the person's looking at the imagery on screen, they can spin the house 360 degrees. They can look at it from the sides. They can count the number of windows, and they say, which ones are you looking to replace? And you can get the qualifications done. That's one way to do it, and you could do it that way. But if you wanted to market to somebody and you don't really want to go out there unless you think they're going to replace 13 or more windows or whatever that number may be, you may want the data. Just tell me all the houses that have 13 windows or more. We can provide that to you. So give me all the homes that have a wood roof. We can provide that to you because you want to go out and sell them a solar roof, and you know that they're going to replace it with something expensive. So it's there's a lot of use cases coming down the pike. Certainly for the roofing community, they've been so good to us and so important to us that we want to make sure we continue to serve that market to the best of our ability.
Very cool. And when is this rolling out?
EagleView One, you will see parts of it. Parts of it are already out. Like the data is part of EagleView One. The delivery mechanism is what we're currently building out, and getting the entitlements right on that and making sure that capability. But I would think if we're sitting here having this conversation next year and we don't have that out, I don't think we'd be. I think we'd be remiss.
Okay, cool. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we do appreciate the bid perfects, the premium reports, the solar reports, but it would be nice to have everything for one subscription price.
That's right. And that's where we're headed.
Cool.
So,
Awesome.
and look, we love the roof report business. I mean, but at this point, if we were to rely on the roof report business for the future of EagleView, I think we could all agree that there'd probably be some trouble in that model. It's what's next and what's exciting that we gets us charged up.
Very cool.
So, as I mentioned, we have 4 verticals. Construction deals with basically anything construction. So I call it construction and solar, but solar and then any exterior contractor. So whether you're doing roofing, siding, windows, that would fall under it. The CID, which is commercial imagery and data, they're the boiler room for all new things, but they currently serve the markets I talked about, being telecom, real estate, and infrastructure, gas pipelines, things like that. You know, we fly a lot of pipelines up in Canada every year to give them data on what's going on with it. So they are not only embedded in some really important industries, but they are also kind of, when somebody calls us and says, "Hey, can you do this?" That's where we feed them. And so they create all the new thought processes around what can we do exciting for that industry that's how the solar industry started. It started in that incubator, and then we came up with it, and then solar became part of construction. So they do a lot more than just sell in their space. They sell in their space, and they kind of the incubator for hot new markets for us. The insurance world, very similar products, very similar solutions. And one thing that I want to make sure that I state when I get to this is this. They buy our roof data, measurements, condition, so on and so forth. All the things that a roofing contractor, the imagery that they would buy. What's really important, certainly to me, but this is EagleView wide, is that, you know, we often hear, you know, this competitor is heavy on siding, or this competitor is. We do not want to vary from whatever ground truth is. Like, it doesn't do EagleView any good to put more of an advantage if you're in a dispute between a carrier, a homeowner, and a contractor for what's the value of that roof. We are just a purveyor of data. All we are is trying to get as accurate measurement information as we possibly can, so that both sides don't have to worry that they're being cheated, and it makes communication, it just alleviates one point of grief that used to occur. And I say this a lot, and I think Xactimate has solved some of this too, so I'll throw them into this conversation. But once upon a time, the insurance business and the retail business really didn't look that different. Homeowner had a problem with the roof. They'd get a bunch of quotes. They'd turn the quotes into the carrier. They were retail quotes. The carrier would say, yeah, go ahead. They'd write them a check, probably for the middle quote, whatever it was. And it looked a lot more like a retail business. Over time, that model had changed, and the friction between carriers and contractors started to grow. And I think Xactimate did a really good job eliminating some of that friction by becoming the source of truth of what it costs for each individual step of the roof. I think EagleView was next in what they delivered in terms of roof data and measurements. You know, the idea that a contractor could go up to an adjuster, and no offense to any adjusters or any contractors, I'm not trying to say that this necessarily occurred, but it could have occurred. A $200 handshake that says that this 30 square job is really 40 squares, and it gets turned around. And EagleView did a tremendous job eliminating that friction point and that amount of fraud that was in the industry, hopefully making the whole thing much more efficient, right? Assess is the next one, right? So what are the things that could be fought over? What does it cost? What size is it? And is there damage or is there not damage? And now through Assess, we're trying to eliminate the friction between whether or not there's damage or there isn't damage. We want to make it fair to both parties, so no one really has to give it much thought. No one's taking advantage of anyone. There's a single source of truth. It's accurate way more often than it isn't. And both sides can live with it, knowing that the homeowner's getting treated properly. And hopefully we become part of the solution of what has become a big problem in this industry, in this country, with insurance premiums soaring out of control.
Oh my God, yeah.
So,
yeah, if you can do anything to help,
we're trying. We're trying. You know, it's funny. There's a lot of places to lay blame in that thing, and but it doesn't do you any good. You're better off just trying to find a solution. So that's what we're after.
Yeah.
So, we are a keeper of data.
Yeah.
Now our data happens to come in the form of imagery for the most part, and that imagery makes us very, very, very important. I like to tell people I'm very important to Marriott and I'm very important to Delta Airlines. They love me. They think I'm very, very handsome because I spend a lot of money at both over the course of the year. AWS thinks EagleView is very pretty. We spend an awful lot of money storing tremendous amounts of data in the form of imagery with AWS. Once it's there, extracting machine learning, I don't know that you don't need to store that information once you've extracted it, as long as you can extract it again every single time. So the use case may be different every time, but the core element that we need to store is the imagery itself. And then what you pull from it could change every single time, or it could be the same every single time, but the cost structure doesn't change once you've got that storing there.
Well, we use EagleView for our measurement reports when we're going out to do estimates. So, when someone calls in and wants a roof estimate, we'll order a bid perfect, but eventually we'll have some subscription model where we'll have access to all the data. But for the time being, we order a bid perfect and it gives us the rough square footage, and we're able to provide the homeowner with an estimate based on that data. So when we go out to meet with the homeowner, we give them an estimate based off of the square footage. And then from there, if we earn the business of the homeowner, then we order a premium report, and that has much more detail in it and accuracy. And we're able to put that into production, order the materials. We have an integration with Roof Hub through SRS, so it's seamless and it's easy. And we're able to produce the job based on that data from EagleView. So yeah, it's and EagleView is the most accurate. So, if you were to try to save money by using, a less accurate, less expensive aerial provider, if you're off a square or two or just, a few pieces of material, that adds up much more quickly than the cost of a report. So it's better to be as accurate as possible. And especially moving to the subscription model, that makes it even more advantageous to just be partnered with EagleView, in my opinion, because you'll have access to the most accurate data and you can use it for whatever you need. If we need the solar data, if we need just the quick squares to go out and just give a rough ballpark estimate to the homeowner before sale, or if we need the full in-depth measurements, linear footage of rakes, valleys, hips, ridges, and so forth to order the materials for the project, we'll have access to all that information. We won't have to onesie twosie it with, this report, that report, the other report. So yeah, that's kind of the life cycle of how we use EagleView. And for the solar, we use the solar reports to determine the shading, determine what mounting planes would be best suited for solar. I wasn't aware that Tesla Solar Roof was integrated in that, or at least I think they were trying to do it when we were getting involved, and it was really kind of funky at the time. So
it's there now, and it the thing that's funky about solar, the Tesla, that's different than the other solar providers. For every one of them, all you really need is the size of the exposure.
Yeah.
So, if it's a shingle, is it 39 3/8 by 5?
I think it was like doing it vertical or something, and it wasn't doing it horizontal.
Well,
it was weird.
It may have been weird the first time, but the other complication that you get with solar is which tiles are passive and which ones are active, and so we've got that worked out as well, so you can identify exactly which ones you want as live.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to revisit that. Yeah, so that would be another use case where we'll start to use that. Because one of the biggest struggles with solar is the, designing it through Aurora and the time it takes. But if we can get the measurement report and we can automatically have a design and we can tell it, hey, focus on all the south mounting planes to maximize the ROI on the solar system, or we can just say max out the system size, using all mounting planes on the roof, that would be great. It would be quick, easy, and we can give the homeowner two options right then and there.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was pretty interesting what you said about the CRM, because I agree with you with artificial intelligence. CRMs, I think, once AI agents are running around, I think you can just ask the AI agent to go through the data and manipulate it however you want, put together reports, dashboards, schedule based off of it, triangulate things. Like, I think CRMs are going to be extremely disruptive with AI.
I think a lot of the technology platforms are going to be disrupted. No two ways about it.
Yeah.
And I think having that core competency that we have that's expensive and hard to get is what's going to keep us alive.
The proprietary data. Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, I would just think with AI agents, you would want to ask an AI agent to do whatever a really intelligent human being could do for you, and just like the sky's the limit. Like you're just using data, like what do you want to see out of the data? Like just going through EagleView's data, I would want to know all the old homes in the area so that I could send a mailer out to. I would want to know all the high-end homes, like the wood shake houses, the standing seam metal, the slate. Just this endless amounts of information there and use cases. So yeah, just asking it whatever you want in the moment of whatever you're trying to focus on.
It's really intriguing the precipice we're on in terms of these agents. I mean, EagleView customer service, we've got a great group of people that work in our customer service department, and they do a fantastic job. And I got to tell you, that's the hardest job there is, right? I mean, you're dealing with customers that not all the time, but often are at the point of heat, right? And you're the first face from EagleView that they get to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we found is that more than 50% of the calls that come into EagleView customer service are just to place an order. Like they're a contractor going down the road that doesn't want to have to, they just want to call the order in, and so they give their email address and maybe, whatever. But, we've now made that 100% an agent that's doing that, because it just, they get the answer that they want in a very timely fashion. Orders placed, we cross-reference it to the person's account, we have payment, and off it goes, and it's seamless. And
you say 50% of the calls?
Just about 50% of the calls we get to our customer service department
are to place an order.
Are placing orders.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, if you think about, I mean, look, not everyone is as sophisticated a house as this, where you probably have people who are procurement people, and if you're a sole proprietor and you are the seller, the owner, and then you manage the crews, you sell a job, or you get a call, a lead that you're going to go drive to, you want that EagleView report, and you're driving, it's a heck of a lot easier to have that phone number programmed into your phone.
Yeah, I guess if you're on the road, but I mean, my EagleView, the website, your guys' new website is amazing.
The new website is absolutely amazing. My friend Russ will be happy to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, shout out Russ Gouda. He's done a great job building that out for us, and probably doesn't get all the credit that he deserves. More often than not, I'm calling him upset about something rather than giving him enough credit, and I apologize, but he's done a great job building out that. So kudos to him and his boss, Jay, doing a great job there. Some of the things, look, I understood your question, but it's hard for me to find a grander use than this one. One of the unknown things about EagleView is that the majority of 911 centers in the United States are integrated with EagleView imagery. And this one's kind of cool if you can imagine this, but keep in mind, these are all static images. We're not flying live while this is happening. But say you're in this town, and a 911 calls in because there's a live shooter in the school, heaven forbid, right? The communication that happens with the SWAT team, with the people on the ground, with this and that and everything, our imagery is shipped into the SWAT van and into all the, so everybody who's on this thing has access to the imagery at some point, and they put a three-dimensional graph. So, graph paper's in 2 dimensions, but if you built a 3-dimensional graph and had cubes, so now, historically, if you're in that situation and the shooter's by the back door on the left-hand side or on the south side or whatever, you used to say, door 2, south side, and you try to give some kind of coordinates so that everybody was speaking the same language. Now they say B36, and they know the cube, where the action is located. Everybody's looking at the exact same information. If you go up in height and it's a couple stories up, they can account for that as well. If it's a fire, you're going up. So, the idea that, I like to think, and my boss is very fond of saying, Mr. Dormeyer says all the time, we can, as EagleView employees, we can take a tremendous amount of solace in not only the number of lives that we've saved by people not falling off a roof, because quite frankly, the last person who should be on a roof is a roofing salesperson, because they typically have the wrong shoes and they're not really made for that. Mm-hmm. And those people did fall off the roofs, and how many of them don't now because of this technology, mm-hmm. but also the number of lives we've saved from the 911 department. So we really have, more so than the business, what could be more valuable than that? Someone going home safe to their family every night because of things that we do.
Yeah, no, that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, that's inspiring.
Absolutely.
And on that note, you guys both work with Tesla. Would you like to take a shot? Tesla Mezcal?
That is a nice surprise, but I want the Tesla shot glass too. Did I not get one of those?
That's the pieces that Nick brought in.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just teasing. Of course, I would like some mezcal. That would be fantastic. It's after 5 o'clock, just in case anyone out there's wondering. Somewhere.
All right.
I like the bubbling noise.
Yeah, you got a call here in about 15 minutes. So
That's all right.
you slept for that.
Where is the clock? I don't know.
3:13.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Cheers, Alex.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Here's to 2025 being a phenomenal year.
Absolutely. Here's the Eagle View and American M Contractor.
That's it. Salud.
Salud.
That's delicious.
Good stuff, right?
Yeah, smoky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did a nice job.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, great to be here. Look forward to seeing you all again soon.